All right, so we're continuing to talk about chapter 5 of my UFO UAP book, and we started on the subject of the fact that mobile objects have to come to rest and possibly have maintenance, and if there's inhabitants involved, they need some type of life support biosphere. When you're talking about AIs, they don't need much more than energy, space and energy, whereas a living being needs space, energy, life support, and that entails food, water, waste management, all these things. And on top of that, there are other factors like psychological factors, what keeps them sane and functional. We don't Our physical bodies don't necessarily need entertainment, but our minds do. Our physical bodies don't necessarily need love, interaction with other people, but our minds do, and therefore our bodies do. Our bodies will deteriorate without certain emotional factors and social factors, right? So, what about light years away on other planets and things like that? It's a little bit less likely for such a abundant presence with so many interactions, but I'm not ruling it out. It would just need an even greater amount of energy and technology that is kind of inconceivable. So to go somewhere that's 10 light years away, if you're traveling even close to the speed of light, at what they call a relativistic speed, depending on how fast you're going, because you're never going to approach the speed of light, it could take 11 years, 100 years, more, less. But from an outside observer, it will appear as if that trip is taking thousands of years long, but the people inside that craft, it will be a shorter amount of time. That's time dilation. That's because of Einstein's theory of relativity and other associated theories. You know, if there's some kind of warp drive, which we don't really have a handle on right now, that would explain it, but we can kind of theoretically talk about it. And there's talk of wormhole travel, which would be a you enter at one point and you almost immediately at another point. If that's possible, I think wormholes, if they were real, some kind of Stargate, uh, would might make that possible. That their home base could be tens, hundreds, thousands, or more light years away, but the trip is almost instantaneous. I don't know if anyone's got a handle on how much energy that would need or what needs to happen for that to happen. I am not a mathematician, okay? My background is more social sciences, psychological sciences, and some of the biological sciences. Um, Another possibility is about these things is, what if they've been here a long time, or even from the beginnings of mankind? Um, then they turn into what's called a crypto civilization, where they're kind of hidden. Okay, but they've always been present, and if they've been affecting us and interacting with us, um, it would be interesting to see how much they have. It appears in recent history not much. I mean, think about it. By recent, I mean even 100 to 200 years ago, or even 5 to 600 years ago. You think about it, we've kind of been what we are for a long time, and the only sudden leaps we have occurred after the technological era. You know, around the 1800s, when we started to sort of progress into thinking about atoms and molecules, there was an acceleration in science. And some people say, Roswell, if it happened or something like that, reverse engineered alien technology was one reason why we had such an explosion of aeronautical and computer and military science advances post World War II. It's interesting. That's all I can say. I can speculate. Um, so let's talk about contact. Human to UFO UAP contact, and that is heavily tied into the extraterrestrial theory of origin. And I have to mention Roswell, Betty and Barney incident. I'm not talking about the Flintstones, although I think those characters were inspired by, named in honor of Betty and Barney Hill, who allegedly were abducted by aliens and had medical experiments, medical procedures perhaps done on them. Travis Walton and Bob Lazar. I'm going to briefly touch on all of these, and I'm going to say that Roswell, again, it's really there in the public eye. I mean, how do you decipher this? There was an announcement in the paper that the Army said they had recovered a UFO. They retracted that statement, and it could be argued, were people fooled into thinking something was there that was not? Was there a hidden Air Force program? Was there an alien spacecraft? The only thing I want to say is that it was really serious because the Army Air Corps threatened people and their families if they talked about it. That we do have a record of, and it's believable. So something happened, and something of a high level involving national security. The Air Force has changed its story at least twice. Okay? First they said nothing happened. Decades later they said it was crash test dummies. Another decade later they're like, well, it was a special weather balloon mogul program. So if they're like, they've admitted they've lied twice, so at what point do they become believable, right? Betty and Barney Hill, very popular in the UFO community, but I mean, there's some things to cast doubt about it. You know, a lot of this stuff was recovered under hypnosis, and the mainstream completely rejects that. First of all, some medical people and psychological people say hypnosis isn't real. Others say it's real, but the problem is the hypnotist can impose their ideas on them, sort of make you remember things that didn't. And meanwhile, I have a hypnosis certificate. I have practiced hypnosis on people. Okay, I know it's very efficacious for many things, so it's really hard to nail that down. The other is Travis Walton. He wrote that famous book Fire in the Sky, and it was a movie, I think, with Marky Mark. I'm going to say this about Travis Walton. His story has stayed the same over decades, over a lifespan, from him being a young man to an older man. Okay? And every interview I've ever seen, the man went through something. He shows a lot of signs of PTSD. And I don't just say this lightly. I say this as a veteran, who goes to the VA and has seen people with PTSD. I also say this as someone who studied body language at both bachelor's, master's, and PhD level and conducted studies in it. And the man is under distress talking about this stuff. And again, a fantastically consistent story. Something happened to him, but there's no strong evidence that could show conclusively that he was abducted by alien greys. I wish there was. Bob Lazar. I really don't like Bob Lazar and his stories. They're all over the place. The story has changed multiple times. Many people say his story never changed. Yes, it did. Secondarily, there's no evidence of all the credentials he talks about. If you watch Bob Lazar, he shows a lot of psychopath tendencies where his expression never ever changes, and they've identified that with psychopathy. He sort of has an affect like this when he's talking about life changing things. Secondarily, again, no proof. Also, a lot of people are like, well, didn't he predict element 115? He talked about, I think that's the numerical. Basically, he said, you know where the periodical chart of elements ends? There's another one, and it's a fantastic power source, and it's this and it's that, and that's what powers the UFO. And then later on, in a cyclotron, they artificially made element 115, let's call it. And he's like, see, it's real. But I'm like, first of all, the real element 115, the one that's scientifically verified, is not stable. It begins to fall apart immediately after it's made. Okay? And also, it doesn't take a lot of effort to say add a number to an existing number. If I say, let's say there are 85 species of parrots, and I'm going to say I have a vision from the future. I see 86 species of parrot. It's not that hard to make that prediction. Who knows? Somewhere, somehow, you may find a parrot, a new species of parrot. How hard is that? It's predicting that one more thing will be found in any given field of endeavor is not a high risk thing. But saying that it's stable and used as a power source when in actuality, you would think someone that had such intimate knowledge is saying they have a way of keeping it stable because it begins to disintegrate right after it's made. And it takes energy to make it, so I don't see how it would be a great energy source, right? So, again, it doesn't jibe with the reality. I'm not a huge fan of Pablo Sarr. I don't think his story is fruitful in studying this field very much. And if you like it, fine. Fine. I'm not saying don't believe it. I'm saying there's nothing there to convince me with my filters, my research, and my background. It doesn't look strong enough. This area is not my chosen focus. The data is ephemeral. It's not very evidence based and is subjective. Okay, which means anybody can tell a story. Anybody can say something happened. It's being able to corroborate that story. Multiple eyewitnesses, chunks of physical evidence. If I say I saw a bear in the woods, that's one thing. If I say I saw a bear in the woods and someone in a car somewhere else who was camping and climbed a tree saw the same bear in the same area, that's something. If I can tell you what it did, where it was, where it came from, where it's going, and then we go try to track it, and we see footprints, we see bear scat, we see maybe a carcass of an animal it killed, a honeycomb it ripped up and ate, then that's strong data. We don't have that right now. Not to the degree that satisfies any skeptical, intelligent, objective, scientific observer from the outside. Now, yes, is there a scientific bias against even looking at this? Yes. But there's also plenty of people that look honestly into this, and there's not a lot of consensus on it, right? So, contact may have happened. We don't have strong data. I wish we did. If someone produces strong data that has a level of authentication and verification I want, something as strong as multi-sensor, something as strong as the tic-tac data, where an entire aircraft carrier tracks it on radar while pilots see it, and they're tracking it on radar, and other pilots see it and track it on radar, and then another ship catches it on radar and camera. Then I have a stronger belief. I'm not against the topic. I'm saying it doesn't give me as much to go on. You understand? If you have the evidence, please make a video. Make a video, state your case, show the photographs, please, and I will certainly look at it and post about it. Okay? So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the nature of some of what is being encountered. I am feeling a little fatigued. I think my blood sugar is low. I had a small breakfast, and it's been a long time. It's almost 2 o'clock. So I'm gonna take a break and get something to eat, and go out and about my business. And I'm gonna resume this at a longer time, but at a more convenient time. But I do want to say that we're not talking about little green men, and we're not talking about anal probes. There's That's not really what's reported. It's used to ridicule the topic. What is being reported from the data that we do have, to the level of credibility we do have, is a completely different narrative. And I want to clear that up, because I think it's being used to mock and ridicule the topic, when that's not really what's being said. All right? So we'll get back to this. Y'all have a good day.